This is a tutorial for loops. Now, if you want to extract each and every value out of this sequence, you have few options in normal ways, right? You can print individual values based on the index. Like let me, if I print s of 0, so I'm getting t, the first value. Similarly, if I print some other index like 8, so I'm getting a, right? But what if I need to print all the individual index values? In that case, it will be difficult to write this long print statements, right? You have to write a print statement for each of the index. So that thing can be automated using for loop. So in for loop, the general syntax of a for loop is you have your for keyword, then the iterator, which will be used to iterate over each value of the sequence. In this case, I'm taking I. And for iterator in what, you have to define the sequence, either the sequence or the range of the sequence. So here I'm going to define the range, and the range will be length of s. Whatever string I have, it will iterate from 0 to the length of the string to the last index of the string, and it will give me all the values. And I'm going to just print each value of that index. So first let's see what is the index. I'll make it a bit meaningful. Index value is this, and index is this, and the value at this index is this. And I'm going to format it. This will be my index and this will be my value. Now if I run this program, you can see index is 0 and the value at 0th index is t, right? Similarly, for each of the index, whatever is the value, I'm getting it. So this, if you read it vertically, this, then space, then is a tutorial for loops, right? So this is how you normally iterate over a sequence. Actually, this is iterating over the range of the sequence, where you have to take the help of the index. Normally you can iterate over the values as well. So I'll give an example of that. So I'm going to comment it out. And same syntax I can use for I in S. Here I am directly accessing the value of every index in the sequence. Rather than going through the syntax, I am directly accessing the values. Then print S. Now if I run this program, okay, sorry, not S, I have to print the I individual values. Yeah. Now if you see, this is a tutorial for loops. I'm getting the values directly rather than the index. But here for I was getting the index because I have used this range function. So this is the difference, and these are two different approaches to do this. Now sometimes we might need the index as well as the value. Okay, so Python has a special function called enumerate for that purpose. So the syntax is quite similar, but here since you are getting the index as well as the values at the same time, you have to define two different variables. So here I am defining I and j both. One will contain my index and the other will contain my value for I comma j in enumerate s. So enumerate is the special function for that reason. Yeah. Now if you see, for I have all the indexes. I have 0, 1, 2 till 27. And for j, I have all the values of individual indexes. So t, h, I, s, and all those values, right? So these are three different variations that we normally need in a for loop. So one could be just getting the index and iterating over each of the index and finding the value based on indexing method. The other one is directly iterating through each of the values and ignoring the index. In this way, when you don't want the position of an element or you're not interested in knowing the position of an element, in those situations you can directly use this direct access method for I in S or in any sequence. And there are certain situations in which you might be interested in both might be interested in keeping track of both values as well as the index. In those situations, you can use enumerate function to get both the values. So enumerate basically returns the tuple of index as well as the value in that index. So since it returns a tuple of two values, we have to take two variables in that case. So that's the only difference. And these are all the available for loop variations in Python. Okay. Now, if you want, we can also see how a for loop works. So let's see that as well. I'll take an example of, let's say, okay, I'll take this example and I'll do a little bit of change here. Okay. Now, let's say I am interested in getting the all the capital letters of a string. Okay. So let's say I'm taking for char in as if, as we know, we can use if statements to check for any condition is upper. So we are checking if the character is in uppercase. So we are going to print that character. So is upper is a string functions. There are multiple string functions in Python, and those are very handy in certain situations. So you can go through those. Now, if I run this, so I'm getting only the uppercase characters T, I, T, F, L, right? So what is happening here? So my character is iterating over each element of S. So it has gone to T. Then for T, it's checking whether it is an uppercase character or not. If it is an uppercase character, it's printing it. Otherwise, it's ignoring and going on to the next character. So one very basic function of any IDE is this debug function, right? So in certain situations, you might face an error in your logic. That would be a runtime error. Syntax errors, anyways, you'll get notified. But in certain situations, you might get some runtime errors and you have to debug your code. So there is a very handy functionality in any IDE. So normally in PyCharm and IntelliJ, you would find this debug function. Okay, when you right click on your code, you'll get this debug function, and which line you want to debug, you have to specify it here. So if I just click on that line, you see I'm getting a red dot here. So this is just saying that I want to debug this line. I want to understand what's happening here, right? So I'm just going to debug this just to show how you can do it in real life scenarios. Okay. So it's waiting for connection. Yeah. You can see a comment kind of thing here. So when my code started, what I have the first value in char as t. Then it went to this line where it's checking whether this is an uppercase or not. So let's step over a bit, and you see, since this was an uppercase character, my code went to the next line. If I step over once again and go back to console, you see I have this t printed already. Now going back to the debugger mode, for next iteration, my char has changed to h. Now I have h in the char value, and it's checking whether this is an uppercase character or not. And if I step over again, see, now in this iteration, rather than going to the print statement, it directly went to the for statement again, because it was not a uppercase character, and this line returned false. And if you see in the console, nothing else is printed. We still have just t. Similarly, for the next value, I have I. So this will also behave in the same way. So I'm just keeping it for now. Till s, same. So we have completed THIS and this space, right? And we have only have T as of now. Now for the next iteration, I'm getting I in the char. And again, it's checking for uppercase. And since it's an uppercase, we have finally moved to the print statement again. And when we step over again, you can see in console, I have I now. So TI. So this is how your code works normally. And I can just step over it quickly just to complete this. So it works in the similar way for all the characters. It checks, it reaches the end of your sequence, and finally it gets out of the program. So your process finished with execute, and you are getting the output. So this is how you can, this is very simple example, but this is how you can debug your code whenever you are facing a runtime error, and it's a very handy tool to use in an IDE.